Hey guys, I hope everybody's doing all right. It's Ryan the Roaster. If if you guys pay attention to the shorts, y'all might have noticed there's a theme for this week. That theme is forgiveness. It's a very powerful tool that we have, I guess, to bring freedom, mainly for ourselves. So I read a quote today, and it said basically, forgiveness is choosing to set the prisoner free and then realizing that the prisoner was ourselves. That is so true. So through life, I've realized that the hurts that I've experienced, the emotional hurts or my soul hurts, it's not always been intentional. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not. So what I've learned about it, like on our flesh, if I get cut by a knife, there's going to be an open wound, and if I don't deal with it, that wound can get infected. I'm gonna tell you a quick story about when I went to Africa the second time. So I was in Africa. We were doing the medical missions, and a young child came up to me, and he had across his face, he had a cut. It was an open wound. So we were asking questions, the history of that injury, to kind of help treat it. And basically, it was a scratch by a thorn that happened 5 years prior. So this kid was walking around with a gaping wound for 5 years. And I thought, man, if he just had the stuff to clean it and treat it on the front end, it wouldn't be an issue. And so something I really noticed were the flies and the gnats. They were tormenting him. I mean, they were just all over it. And, every time he'd have to sweep it, and they just swarm back. And I noticed, being down here in Alabama, if I've got a cut on my knee in the summer, those gnats are going to bother me. But when I was looking at that, I started thinking about forgiveness and how many times in life I've held on to unforgiveness. And it seems like the person who I haven't forgiven, when I got around them, it's like these emotions would torment me. I mean, they would. It'd steal my peace, steal my joy, and it'd be like gnats and flies in my mind. And a lot of times I'll pray about it and be like, there's similarities. Let me see if in the Bible where they talk about that. And there's a story in the Bible. It's the young servant and his unforgiveness. And so, just a quick short story. This guy, he owed a great debt to the master, and he went and begged for forgiveness from the master, and then the master, in his loving kindness, forgave the guy's debt. Well, then the guy goes about his business, and he found somebody who owed him money, and he didn't show him mercy. He held him, and didn't forgive him for his debt. And then the master turned him loose to the tormentor. So I believe there's like a spiritual concept that when we don't forgive, we're tormented. Say, mentally, we'll be tormented with that unforgiveness. And so I'm just going to try and help y'all learn what I've learned the hard way. Hopefully it'll be easier for y'all. So the first thing you have to do, let's think of forgiveness like a wound. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to heal that wound. And something that I've learned in life, for me personally, I have 100% of the time, I have never felt like forgiving somebody. It was never an emotional thing like, oh, this person wronged me, let me go forgive them. Never felt like it. It always had to be a choice. In my walking with Jesus through the years, I've realized that, like, to see the grace and the power of God come, and for me to see that in my life, I have to submit my will and my desires to the Lord's will and the Lord's desires. So it's an act of faith. Like, forgiveness is not something where you're like, I feel like forgiving them, I'm going to forgive them. A lot of times you don't even want to. And the reality is a lot of times they don't deserve it. But I don't deserve forgiveness either. And it's been freely given. So you won't always feel like forgiving somebody, but it's a step of faith. And a lot of times the emotions don't just come like that. It's a process. Years ago, I had somebody hurt me, pretty deep wound. And it seems like for a year, no joke, for one whole year, every day, multiple times in the day, this thought would just pop into my head. And instantly, anger, instantly, sadness, hurt, these emotions would just come. Or excuse me, this was before I started the forgiving process. It wasn't a year. So for a short amount of time until I submitted my will to the Lord's and made the choice, I would think of this constantly, and it was like I just couldn't find peace. And it would keep coming at me and keep coming at me. So then I was like, I've got to forgive. And I actually had this thing. It's crazy the way the timing is. Like this hurt came. Then I had this thing where I actually learned about forgiveness. And so I got to like walk it out what I learned, thankfully, because it was earlier in life. So I learned how to do it. It was like after I made a choice to forgive, like every day, multiple times a day, these thoughts would pop into my head. And as soon as the scene of my life, every time it replayed, anger, sadness, depression, all this stuff would start coming in. I literally, when the movie clip played in my mind, I had to just right then say, I choose to forgive. I choose to forgive. And if 5 minutes later it came, I choose to forgive. Bless this person that hurt me. I choose to forgive. You know, Jesus once, they asked him, they said, how many times should I forgive this guy? 7? Jesus said, no, 7 times 70. That's 490 times. And I began to realize sometimes that's how many times you've got to make the decision to forgive them before the work's complete. Sometimes I've learned that forgiveness is instant. Like the emotions come, the freedom comes. Sometimes it's a process that takes time. And we have to actively choose multiple times until the emotions come. But I promise you, they will come. They will come. The grace of God will come and make the work complete. Everybody in life says, forgive and forget. Forgive and forget. I've never been able to do that. I think it's baloney. I don't think you'll ever be able to forget. I'll tell you a quick story. So I was doing civil construction, and we did like a lot of concrete work. And so there was some curb we had to cut out. And the way you cut concrete, it's a diamond blade and it's a big old, saw. So I went and I was going to help the crew that was doing it. So I went and was cutting, and that thing caught the curb. It pinched. It shot the saw out, ran over the top of my foot, and split my foot open. Big old wound. It was on the top of my foot. Big wound. Hurt. God, it hurt. They had to scrub it out. That was terrible. Terrible experience. A lot of pain. There was pain for months as it was healing. But now that it's healed, I can tell you the story and there's no pain. I can look at the scar and see the scar, but it doesn't hurt. That's when you know forgiveness is done. You can tell the story and there's no pain, no anger, no depression, no bitterness involved. So that's a way you can kind of check yourself. Who do you forgive? It can be parents, can be strangers, relatives. A lot of times we got to forgive ourselves for mistakes we've made in the past. And this might be something that is hard for people to understand, but sometimes in my life I felt like I had to forgive God. Not that he's made mistakes, but because there were disappointments and things that I didn't understand that kind of hurt. And he is pure. I'm not. But in those moments, it's like of disappointment and anger and all these emotions towards him. And it's like, I forgive you. Even though you didn't do anything wrong, I forgive you. Some of the stuff that I had to forgive my parents for, it wasn't for anything they really did wrong. They're amazing parents, It was just situations and circumstances of life. They weren't even aware that the circumstances were bringing me hurt. So if this video's kind of spoken to you and on the inside you're feeling like, man, I want to do this, or I don't know how or anything, I said, it might be kind of cool if I just helped people kind of the process I do. So the first thing I always do is I just think. And for me, I walk with Jesus, so I say a little prayer. But if you don't walk with Jesus, you can still forgive people, and so you can just sit and dwell on it. And but what I do is I'll just say, Jesus, is there anybody or anything that I need to forgive? And so something will come to my mind, okay? And it could be my imagination, or it could be the Holy Spirit speaking to me. I don't know. But when that situation or person comes to mind, I just say, Lord, I choose to forgive this person. And I release them from any judgment, and I want to bless them. And that's it. So, one, is there anybody I need to forgive? And two, I choose to forgive. And guess what? The emotions probably aren't there, but they will come. People say forgive and forget, but it's kind of like when I cut my foot open. I learned from that situation, right? And guess what? I'm not going to do. I'm not going to put myself in that harmful situation again. Okay? So just like forgiveness, just because you've forgiven them, it doesn't mean you need to allow them to continue to hurt you if you're in that situation. It doesn't mean that you just have to hit the reset button and say, hey, it's like they've never done anything. What I've learned is when we truly forgive somebody, instead of remembering history from a place of judgment, we remember history from a place of mercy. And so we can still love people without allowing them to harm us anymore. And so, guys, thank y'all for your time and for always encouraging me through the comments. But remember, be happy. Man, forgiveness is a part of being happy, and forgiveness is a part of loving others. So, you guys, you got this. Y'all take care.